Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Indie Insights for this Tuesday today, because it was a public holiday yesterday for most of the country. Today we have our wonderful partners and friends at ARN, and they're going to be talking about the evolution of podcast. And with probably one of the country's leading experts on this, Corey Layton, is going to be talking to us about all of these wonderful things. He's just returned from London. We just found out a couple of weeks ago, but still, he's just returned back. He's probably got his pulse on the finger on the pulse of everything audio and podcasting from all over the world, and he's about to unleash it upon all of us. So, Corey, over to you.
Thank you, Sam. I was over at a podcast conference of all things in London. 6,000 people from around the world descended on this conference. So some of those insights I will share shortly. But one interactive thing I'm going to ask you to do, and it's not hard, virtual show of hands, who listens to podcasts? This is the only thing I'm going to ask you to do. Hold on, I'm hoping for some more hands. Yeah, a stack of hands. Podcasts have come such a long way. I started doing presentations on the podcast ecosystem in 2016. So I've been around for a while. And when I asked brands and agencies and clients to put up their hands if they listen to podcasts, I was lucky to get maybe 2 or 3 at most. And so you can just see by show of hands how much the industry has changed and how podcasts have become so deeply immersed in our lives. They are reshaping culture, and they've now become, as you can see, an essential tool for modern marketers, given how many people are listening to them. You can all throw your hands down now, but thank you. Before we deep dive into how the industry has evolved, let's first kick off with a look at iHeart. Seamless. Here we go.
Kissy face, sent to your phone, but I'm trying to kiss your lips for real. Red hearts, that's what I'm on, yeah. Come give me something I can feel. Don't you want me like I want you, baby? Don't you need me like I need you now? See tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at the you, baby. Don't you need me like I need you now? Sleep tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at the just meet me at the just meet me at the just meet me.
We are super excited to be presenting to you guys today, and just very quickly a little bit about us. We, from a network perspective, provide brands with so much scale and integration into the biggest local and global shows consumed by Aussies. We're talking everything from the BBC and the New York Times to local hits like Dylan Friends, Shoes on the Money, Life Uncut, and The Wiggles. We've now been doing it. We've been number 1 for 60 consecutive podcast rankers in a row, which is phenomenal and something that we just ticked over in the last month, and something we are super, super proud of. So that's enough about us. You came here to understand more about podcasts. So let's deep dive into the DNA of podcasts. As I said, the industry has evolved rapidly, particularly over the last 12 to 24 months. No longer are podcasts about the audio you hear. They're now about an entire universe that surrounds them. Podcasters are absolutely meeting a growing demand for immersive 360-degree fan experiences. And given the fan loyalty and their willingness to engage, creators have expanded their reach across video, social, events, EDMs, merch. They've got it all covered. But at the heart of it all is the podcast itself, with hosts driving powerful content ecosystems built on the foundation of trust and connection. But what is it that makes a podcast inherently special? There are a few things that you would all know. The first up is its intimacy that you absolutely can't fake. You take one of our biggest shows like Life Uncut, where the hosts talk to listeners like they're close friends. If you ever see them at an event or out and about, people just walk up to them, not like fans, but like they're their besties. Second up is time and attention in podcasts. Kyle and Jackie O, believe it or not, is a great example of this. Every day we publish a 2-hour best of podcast with Kyle and Jack. And when I first got to ARN's iHeart, I was like, can we stop making a 2-hour podcast every single day? Turns out I got it wrong. The average time spent listening is in the high 80% each and every day. That means people are making it through like an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes of their on-demand podcast. Format flexibility is another key part to podcasts, and that's not just across shows, but also within shows. Podcasts like the Daily Oz do a daily morning deep dive. They've got a daily afternoon headlines format. They've got a weekend good news format. Plus, they've got an investigative series on top, which just goes to prove that format flexibility point. And last but not least is the built-in loyalty. And She's on the Money is such a great example of this. The show's been around for 6 years now. Victoria Devine and the team have built a two-way connection with their fans. Every single week, listeners submit questions, money diaries to the Facebook community, and take it to a whole new level when they talk about sharing their money wins. It's the DNA of podcasts today that's absolutely made them boom. There are now 584 million people listening to podcasts around the world every single month. Now, that is more than the number of people, believe it or not, that catch a plane every month, more than the number of people that game globally every month, even more than the number of people enrolled into university. Closer to home, and audio listening is absolutely on the rise. With more places and ways to listen to audio, audiences are soaring. And it's the result of the sustained growth over the last 5 years that we are consuming 182% more audio every day since a decade ago. To put that into context, in the last 5 years, the combined population of Perth has joined into listening to digital audio. And that growth is across all forms of audio. Sorry, this graph is quite ugly, but bear with me while I talk it through. Every type of audio serves a very different need state. And when you're planning a campaign, it's quite important to keep this in mind. So radio, you can see here, is quite centered in what it provides. It peaks out where people say that it helps listeners to both feel, which is about keeping you company, and also do. It provides a source of information. Now, streaming music, however, is all about the feels. It brightens people's day. It's used as an escape. And you would know it from being at work. You either probably use streaming music during the day to help hype you up when you really can't be stopped, or to keep you calm if you're on a serious deadline. Podcasts, however, are distinct yet again. They help people do, so be it helping them to learn something or to fulfill a personal interest. And so for all these reasons, you can see it's why podcasts are complementary to other forms of audio. They play a rapidly growing and unique offering to listeners that is distinct from streaming and distinct from radio. So how big are podcasts here in Australia? Monthly podcast listening continues to grow, with almost half the population listening every single month. From 2023 to 24, podcast audiences increased by over 1 million Aussies. And in the next week, the latest Infinite Dial report will drop, where that number is expected to grow a little bit again. And we're looking forward to being able to share that. As for who's listening, gender is very even. And when you compare the average Australian population to podcast listeners, the medium is over-indexing, particularly in that 18 to 44-year-old demographic, which means it's a particularly useful medium if you're looking to extend your reach to a younger audience. As you can see here, podcast average age is 39. When it comes to radio and TV, it's about 48. And so if you add podcasts to your plan, it can help extend the reach younger. Compared to the average Aussie, a podcast listener's household income is also higher. So well done to everyone that put your hand up at the start of the call. You make more money, apparently, and you're also more affluent. So congrats to you. It does mean that podcast listeners have a higher disposable income, which makes them more influential when it comes to brands. Given that they have more money to spare, it's an incredible medium to be a part of. How much they're listening is also extraordinary. The time spent listening has more than doubled in the past 7 years. Now, a few years ago, we were spending an average of 29 minutes with podcasts every day. Today, that number has ballooned to over an hour every single day. Now, it might sound a bit counterintuitive. Usually, as a medium goes mainstream, it gets watered down because it's not just the early adopters or the super fans on the channel anymore. The total opposite is happening with podcasting. Not only is podcast reaching my mum, who incidentally now has 3 favorite shows, but we're all listening for double as long as we used to. It just demonstrates the quality of the content that's now available on the medium. And it's why it's no longer experimental. Podcasts are Australia's fastest growing mass media. They now reach a total of 9.2 million Australians every single month. So it's clear that they have scaled rapidly, but they're also now deeply immersed into our lives and they're reshaping culture, making them an essential tool when it comes to marketing. You've likely heard someone say to you, yeah, I heard about it on a podcast. Hearing that sort of phrase has now become really common as the medium shapes public opinion both online and off. And nowhere has this become more apparent than at the ballot box, particularly globally and also locally. In the US election, you would have seen Trump's appearance on shows like Joe Rogan and many more has been heralded at helping him form a bit of a groundswell around the younger voters, particularly males. Locally, Albanese tapped into a whole range of podcasts, shows like The Daily Oz to talk to younger voters, She's on the Money to dive into the budget, and even shows like Big Small Talk to talk about the issues that are affecting young women. Now, podcasts are shifting conversation across a broad range of cultural hot buttons. If you've avoided this one, congratulations. It was a once niche podcast called Pocket Pod. They found national attention over the last few weeks after a viral clip reignited the fierce debate over gender roles in relationship. It's not worth checking out. It's quite horrible what they said. Happy Families, they offered a confronting look at what boys are really up against, which gained that show national traction in the wake of Netflix's Adolescence. The Imperfects, a show I'm sure we all know and love, they sparked a national outpouring after Hugh Van Cuylenberg shared a pretty raw, open letter to parents about raising neurodivergent kids. And then there's the Hot Tour Girl, who launched her own podcast, believe it or not. She had 15 minutes of fame, and it continued where she got the chance to share more than just a meme about herself. Regardless of her, more broadly, it's the ability for podcasters to shape that cultural zeitgeist that is absolutely helping skew most people's identity and has also shifted our relationships with the podcast talent. Now, this is a look at how the podcast fan journey used to be. It was discovery, engagement, and loyalty. Now it includes these additional tiers of community and identity, as the level of engagement has taken to an entirely new level that's unique to podcast fans. If you think about your favorite show, whatever that is, you likely know more about that talent than you do some of your workmates or even some of your friends. And from that, you trust that talent's opinion. And it's also formed part of your identity. It's become a real thing. We ran a survey of over 1,000 people, and we asked them to rank how much they trust the content and talent that they see and hear on these platforms. As you can see, audio has the highest rank. And when you overlay that with the trust that audiences have in brands that are advertising in podcasts, that halo extends, with audiences trusting commercial messaging 1.2 times more than other platforms. It's why, from a brand perspective, utilizing podcast talent to deliver a brand's message in that talent's own tone and style is so powerful. So how else are podcasts shaping culture? If you've ever participated in the podcast industry circles of late, if you mention the word podcast, you would have heard the word video. I know that's all I heard when I was over in London a couple of weeks ago. When it comes to video, it's not replacing audio. It is expanding podcast reach. Whatever your age, whatever the platform, podcasts are now present as part of the conversation. And when it comes to video, for some podcasts, they work really well. And what you can see here is a sample of our local Aussie iHeart podcast talent that are using video. And it's really the power of premium content at scale on platforms where their fans are already watching. For these shows, it is working phenomenally well. But video isn't necessarily right for every platform. If you think about a true crime podcast or investigative podcast or even narrative, in some cases, video is just not going to work for those types of podcasts, or else you're probably making a documentary. Regardless, from our perspective here at iHeart, it's important that podcasts show up wherever a fan is. And as the number one podcast publisher, iHeart podcasts are available everywhere that people will listen. And now with YouTube, we're reaching new audiences while continuing to grow in audio. What we're not doing is trying to force fans into a single platform or an app. Our strategy is simple. We want fans to connect with our content no matter where they are on any of these platforms and more. And that's why we ensure that we are available everywhere in platforms like iHeart and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And when it comes to video, we're right there too with platforms like YouTube. And that flexibility is what helps our shows grow and gives brands more ways to connect. In the same way that we control which platforms we distribute our content to, ARN has the sole control over which advertisers align with our shows. So if you're listening to Life Uncut, say on Spotify, the ads that you hear are sold and controlled by ARN. And same goes for all of our shows, be it the BBC or the Wiggles. And that's because in podcasts, it's the publisher that controls both the content and the advertising, not the platform. And so by working with ARN, we can ensure that your message is carried everywhere the podcast is consumed. But podcasts are no longer even just audio and video content. Podcasts are meeting a growing demand for immersive 360-degree experiences. Many shows have expanded their reach into things like live events, video, as I mentioned, social, EDMs, they've even got merch. And at the heart of it all is the podcast itself, with hosts driving powerful connection and ecosystems built on the foundation of that trust and connection I spoke about. So if you would take Life Uncut, for instance, they publish an audio podcast 3 times a week. They've got a daily radio show across the KISS network. They've got a YouTube channel. They've got social channels, a thriving online community. They've got a national tour and lots more on top of that. So when you think about brands and how best to be part of a podcast, here's how Life Uncut utilize their channels to drive advertiser outcomes.
Thanks. Life Uncut really special and such a great brand fit for so many different types of brands is that it's not just a podcast. We've got a huge Lifer community, over 1 million downloads a month of people listening to the actual shows. We also have our personal Instagram pages, which are really robust. We have the Life Uncut Instagram page that allows you to curate a message that's suitable across different multi-platforms, because what we have a lot of experience in is making sure that we can help to curate, okay, this is the brand concept, this is the key messaging. How do we deliver it the best way on socials to the best way on the digital platforms of podcasting?
It is like a referral from a friend. So when we are talking about whatever the sponsorship is, our community trusts us so much because they know that we will not advertise something that we truly haven't used or don't believe in or isn't in line with our morals. It really makes a difference when you have formed that trust. We guarantee you what you buy. We have seen such great feedback from our brands, like a lot of brands contacting us after saying this product sold out or we've never had so much engagement on this, and that is coming back to that referral from a friend.
That's something that really sets the ecosystem of Life Uncut apart from a brand perspective.
I can guarantee all of you in here that have said you haven't listened, there is an episode for you.
Absolutely. It's well worth checking out the show. If you're interested in Brit's recent wedding on the weekend, you can check out today's latest episode. So as you've seen, podcast audiences are rapidly rising, and part of that is because of the diverse content and the audiences that is tapping into. Now, from an Australian perspective, these stats are super interesting. 63% of Australians born in Asia are listening to podcasts, which is over 1 million per month. 61% of LGBTQ plus audiences are listening each month. 41% of regional audiences are now tuning in, and 2 in 3 Gen Zs are also listening every single month. And with that, at iHeart, we are very much focused on engaging fans as diverse as the world in which we live. Here are some examples. I'm sure you've all heard podcasts featuring 2 blokes talking about sport endlessly, and that's where this show comes into play. 2 Good Sports. Every week, Abby Jelmy and Georgie Tunney cover sport news told differently, appealing to both women and men alike. Blackcast is an Indigenous podcast network that is aligned to iHeart. It's led by the incredible Mundanara Bales. The network celebrates Indigenous knowledge and a very diverse perspective. Aligned to that is this podcast called Find and Tell. It's a series that is designed to unearth and platform the next diverse generation of Australian storytellers. The next series is currently in production, drops in August, and it is filled with some really high production Indigenous narrative stories that we're super excited to reveal. And then there is Concealed with Art Simone, where everyday people lift the veil on a side of their lives that they might have kept hidden. Now, cynics might say that this sort of content is interpreted as just another DEI play, but this is very much a programming decision to capitalize on the biggest growth audiences, and each of these titles is driving strong advertiser interest as well. So it's clear that podcasts have rapidly grown and that they are now dominant in Australian culture. And with that, brands are investing even more in podcast advertising, but there is room to grow. The 2024 global podcast industry is reportedly worth $7.3 billion in media spend. That's across direct programmatic revenue plus branded podcasts and revenue for things like subscriptions. Now, 67% of that figure is from the US. So how different is media investment locally? Well, here it is from a medium that most of us at the start put our hands up and said, yes, we enjoy podcasts. The ratio of advertisers to audiences still lags, unfortunately. The Australian podcast advertising industry totaled 118 million in 2024. Now, when you consider that Australian podcast listeners enjoy an average of 65 minutes of content every single day, you probably get away, 1 or 2 episodes in that time. And that also equates to about 1 to 2 minutes of ads. So for the smart brands, getting in now is proving highly effective as you cut through with audiences, and recall remains consistently high. So while we've covered the full podcast ecosystem today, from video to socials, we at ARN's iHeart always start with audio. Audio is where audience attention starts. It's intimate, it's trusted, and proven to drive action. In fact, when audiences hear a brand message in audio first, they're 109% more likely to engage with digital or social ads that follow. So while video helps us expand and reach new audiences, it's audio that builds the connection and makes every part of your media plan work harder. So there you have it. Hopefully this was a valuable deep dive into the evolution of podcasts, how they've rapidly grown and how they're now shaping culture. So just to recap, it is clear that podcasts are now rapidly influencing public opinion. Video is adding to the medium's growth, but only where it makes sense. Audiences are craving podcasts to show up across all platforms. Diverse fans are fueling the audience growth. And all of that is why podcasts are now critical to your media investment. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions, but Sam, this is the all-important QR code, right?
It certainly is. Guys, just scan that and give it a little vote. It'll take you about 30 seconds, if that. Corey, thank you so much for that. Always interesting to hear from you guys and the ever-changing space and how it's evolving podcast. We saw that, in the IMAA census, how important it was, and I think it was number 3 or 4 on the on the growth trajectory. So really, really interesting growing space for everyone here. Guys, thank you so much for that. Just a quick reminder, 26th of June, you'll see an invitation to our Soundbite series. This is going to be an amazing event. We have the one and only Carl and Jackie O presenting, plus a raft of other amazing stars. It's going to be a great afternoon, and get your tickets whilst they're still available. Other events, we've got Pitchella happening on the 17th of July in Melbourne. If you haven't got a team in there, just come along. It's going to be a great night. In Brisbane, we've got our Christmas in July event on the 24th. And we look forward to speaking to everyone next Monday. Thank you so much, ARN and Corey. Thank you. See you soon, guys.
Thanks, everyone.